Hello and a very warm welcome to Talking Europe. The word robot was coined in the 1920s in a play by a Czech author that ended with robots taking over the earth and destroying their makers. Since the 20s, our reliance on machines and robots has increased, along with their abilities. Robots have become mobile, they can hoover our homes, make micro cuts in invasive surgery beyond the scope of human hands. They could soon be chauffeuring us around in driverless cars, and unmanned drones already fly overhead. So are these man-made machines always there to lend the human a helping hand, or could they also be creating their own set of problems, replacing us in the workplace, capable one day of turning against us? The European Parliament has drafted a set of rules for robots that would propose legal status actually for the machines, but how far should robots be allowed to go? Well, I'm joined in set by some very real people who have been examining the question. From United Robotics, a trade association that represents robot manufacturers, I have Mr. Patrick Schwarzkopf. Beside you, I have Estonian MEP Kaja Kallas. Now, you're from a country really getting into the high-tech world, so it'll be interesting to have your opinion on that. And also from Luxembourg, Ms. Madi Delvaux, the author of the report here in the EU Parliament. Ms. Delvaux, can I start with your good self? Firstly, can you tell us what is a robot and why do we need laws to manage them?
A robot is not a robot. There are, as you said, there are driverless cars, there are drones, there are surgical robots, care robots, service robots, agricultural robots. So
how do we manage them?
And that's why, at the beginning, I thought we could have a robot law, but at the end of our work, I say we have to look at the applications and make the most intelligent use of our regulation. But there are some common principles for a robot, because a robot collects a lot of data, so this is an issue which is common to all kinds of robots. Privacy, to whom belongs the data, who has access to this data. There's also a question of liability, or at least how can we repair if a robot makes a damage. Normally, robots should make life for humans easier. It should benefit every human. And there is the fear of many people that robots will steal our jobs. So the report tries to take into consideration the expectations, but also the fears. And then we say we need a debate with expertise.
We definitely need a debate.
And not come to conclusions too early.
Well, because it sounds like there's two elements. One, it's on the legal side of, who needs to pay up if robots make mistakes, and putting those legal obligations, if you like, on robots or their owners or their designers. Mr. Schwarzkopf, though, how do industries see that side of the thing? Is that being welcomed? Do they also accept that, the bigger the industry becomes, the more we have to try and control it?
Well, I represent the robotics industry, and we have two fields. One is the industrial robots that you see in the television, things about car manufacturing, typical applications. You also have service robots in the household for private use, and we represent more the service robotics industry in professional use, like logistics in factories, surgical robots, and so on. We see there's a bit of a confusion at the moment. Almost everything is termed a robot or called a robot. That's also a problem, yeah? A robot is usually something that has a physical end to it. It moves something, and software is called a robot. Cars are called robots. For example, when we talk about safety rules on the roads, and we see that the driverless car is becoming a reality now, pretty soon. We probably need regulations. We as a robotics industry say, it's a driverless car, it's not a robot, and we don't feel eligible to tell the transport ministries, for example.
So again, it needs to be broken into various sections of robots.
I think we have to look at it differently.
But overall, as a principle, we need to start putting controls. Ms. Kallas, do you think we need to start putting measures in place to really make sure that the rules are there when these robots start to take over?
Well, we have to ask the question, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? And of course, when we had the report and the discussions there, then the biggest fear is what you also mentioned, that the robots are taking the jobs. This fear has been there since the machines were invented. So there have been different forecasts that the robots are taking the jobs, but they haven't really. So what we also saw in the studies that were presented to us, that it's rather not that the robots are taking over, but we have to learn how to collaborate with them. So when we talk about the jobs, it's definite that that our jobs are going to change, and we have to adapt and take these things into account, but rather not that everything is taken over. And of course, there are sectors where it's more influenced by the robotization than the others, and we have to look at those sectors specifically.
Ms. Dalvo, we're going to look at a report of some robots in factories in France, but overall, do you agree that they won't necessarily lead to less jobs, but just different jobs?
But there certainly will be, every profession will be impacted by robots, and that's why we have to learn how to interact, as Madame Kalla said, and the challenge for our educational system is how will we manage to do it. And there will be certainly winners and losers in every technological evolution. There have been winners and losers, and I also care about the losers, not only about the winners.
Well, let's just, before we go any further, take a quick look at some factories in France where robots have definitely become very much part of the workforce.
The 21st century factory floor is a futuristic place, with machines playing a major role on the production line. For many workers, corralling robots is part of their daily routine.
Pourquoi vous l'enfermez, ce robot?
It's for safety, to prevent anything dangerous happening.
Man and machine now increasingly work side by side. This mobile transport platform is what the technicians call a cobot, a collaborative robot. It's a self-propelled machine that shares space with human workers and even interacts physically with them.
Vous l'attrapez à la main.
You take it with your hand and show it the first point, then you show it a second point. You can leave and do something else, and it will keep working here.
Augmented reality is also establishing itself as a vital tool. This section of aircraft fuselage is far from finished, but the assembly instructions can be beamed onto the cabin for workers to follow.
Here I just have to go and get the right screw, follow the diagram, and put it in the right position.
Factory design also benefits from cutting-edge technology. Virtual reality allows architects to visualize the optimum layout. Here the technicians are checking no space is wasted on the virtual conveyor belt.
For me, the robot's where you're standing. So if you could just stand back so I can get hold of the robot here. Now what I'm doing is manipulating an imaginary robot.
The search for efficiency is driving the race to simplify robots ever more. The next step is developing robots that need less and less human input, raising new fears that automation could cost jobs.
So there you can see one example of robots very much being in the workplace. Ms. Callas?
Well, that video showed very well that it's a collaboration between the people and the machines. So it's rather than assisting the machines, and it's a collaboration. So,
Ms. Dalvo, though, do you think it is a collaboration? And you mentioned you are also worried for the losers. Do you think there will really be a lot of people that lose out because of robots? Because it's also a big industry in and of itself.
Well, we come back to the definition of a robot. in some sectors, there will be jobs destroyed. I think of driverless car. If one day you have taxis as driverless cars, then of course many jobs will be lost. And then we have to find a solution or a transitional solution on how to retrain these people. But I also want to say that the most robotized industry in the European Union is the German industry, and they are very, very successful. And some people say, well, with robot we can bring back production to the European Union. So I am not against.
It could be an opportunity.
But we have to see the advantages, but also the challenges, and look at both.
Mr. Schroeswolf?
Yes, I mean, the narrative usually is that a robot comes in a factory, it replaces the human worker becomes unemployed, and nobody wants that, of course. And when we look a bit more closely at the reality in the factories, it's quite different. First of all, as you correctly said, the robotics is opening up a completely new chapter where robots worked in their own sphere behind cages and humans worked in different places, and they were two completely separate worlds. Now robotics is opening up a completely new chapter, and they want robots and humans to collaborate. For example, the robot could bear a heavy weight so that the human worker
can
do something finicky with it.
Or even the dangerous elements
where you
of some
need
of the jobs.
Dexterity of the human. And that combination is a very powerful combination.
But coming to the job losses, then if we think we have had these kind of revolutions before, so when we had industrial revolution, also a lot of jobs that were in place there, like all the craftsmen were actually replaced, or you could say, but it changed the employment. And what was the policy response for that was that to make the education, primary education, obligatory. So I think the education is definitely a question that we have to look, because maybe it's making it obligatory that you also have digital skills, how people would feel comfortable with the machines, because it's all about
that they don't stay this kind of foreign entity or something automatically to fear. But there's also increasingly the idea of a tax on robots being voiced. You know, we heard even Bill Gates saying that could be the way to improve our economic future. Also, a French presidential candidate saying the same. Ms. Delvaux, do you think that might be one of the rules we have to put in place?
Yes, this is if you go to the scenario where there will be massive unemployment, because our social security system and tax is very much linked to the wages. And if you believe in the scenario that there will be loss of jobs, then you have to look for alternative ways of finance. And the report does not, well, it was my proposal to say, let's think about it. I didn't ask for an immediate introduction, and anyway, not every robot should be taxed, but the work done by robots could be taxed in parallel with the work done by humans.
Ms. Kalasi, Estonia really a startup hub, and a lot of technical companies. How would that go down?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, that it's not that the robots are used or created by big companies that have lots of money. Also, startups that develop their products. So if we introduce tax on robots, we might just drive the companies, high-tech companies, away from Europe, because elsewhere they are not taxed. So we are left with the passive usage of robots, which we actually don't want. So where is the value created?
Mr. Schwarzkopf, because we mentioned it earlier, but really the German robotics, I believe the turnover is 12 billion last year. Do you not think an industry of that size, we do need to put some of these rules and possibly taxes on it?
Well, 12 billion euros was the robotics and automation turnover of the German companies all over the world, and it's a significant industry. But we have to look at the competitiveness of the European manufacturing sector, because this is something we need to have economic prosperity and jobs. And when we look at the companies that are highly robotized, the employment grows. That's counterintuitive, but it just happens. For example, in the German automotive industry, we looked at the robotization there. Between 2010 and 2015, the robot population in the German automotive industry increased by 17%.
But would it not have increased more without robots?
Same period of time, employment in the automotive industry increased by 13%. So not only did the robots
but if we didn't have robots, would we not have had even more than 13%?
I don't think so.
Maybe the automobile industry just took off.
The opposite would be true. What happens is when you automate, you can produce the same thing with fewer people. But we never produce the same thing. We produce more, we produce more advanced products and more complex.
But there is another part of the report, you mentioned it earlier, the insurance question. I mean, who is responsible if a robot has an accident? Is it the designer or is it the owner?
Well, for me, in the report, we didn't, as we have different views, we didn't propose a solution, and we say it has to be one of the stakeholders. But for me, the first question is, how can we assure a reparation if a damage is made to the third person? And this is the question, and I think we have to look at the one who is best placed to minimize the risk.
Who has the control?
And this
who has the control?
So far, should be the producer, I believe.
So far, the regulation of the machines has been that who has the control over the machine. Of course, when we go into self-learning machines and things, you have questions: who has really the control over the machine? So who is responsible? And we definitely have to discuss that. But also, I see a lot of maybe lobbying from the insurance part part as well, that, you know, you create another fund for everything, and again, it's a lot of money, but of course we have to have this debate and agree who is responsible when the robot does something.
Because you mentioned there the robots that could almost teach themselves new information, and going down that artificial intelligence road sends the shiver up many a spine. In the report, it seemed to say that we are getting close to the stage where robots could surpass human intelligence. Should I be very afraid?
I don't think so, because I think human capabilities are underestimated, and artificial intelligence, in our opinion, is grossly overestimated.
At least for the moment, it's overestimated.
But
you never know what will happen.
We should distinguish two concepts. One is AI, artificial intelligence, the idea that computers become smarter than human beings, which we have to look into creativity. Can a computer ask the right question? Or can he only answer questions? Yeah, that's the question, and a sense of logical thinking, yes, but there are many human characteristics artificial intelligence can't replicate. Now, the other concept is IA, which would be intelligence amplification. You have a doctor, a human doctor talking to a patient, but using artificial intelligence and machine learning to find out cures for that patient much better.
You said that the human capabilities, but we have to also, when we talk to children, for example, we have to tell them that, you know, every time you give something away to the machine, you actually becomes weaker in you.
It's something to remember, folks. The more we use, even as I pointed out to me, or mobile telephones which have AI in them, be careful what you're giving away. Sadly, we are already out of time for this debate, but thanks very much to my guests for having joined us. Thanks to you at home for having watched. Join us again